Okay, we're on the air. So I was looking this morning. I wanted to talk about acceptance, and there's so many different directions to go in. But the lessons for the week, they've got there's a number of pieces in there about acceptance, and generally it's about acceptance of others. And I was thinking about the third thing that I tell people in the marriage ceremony is accept one another as you are, neither trying to change the other. It's like a big deal. In that regard, it's like you have this person in your life, whether it's romantic or whether it's a friendship or whatever, and you love them. We say that we love them unconditionally until they start doing some stuff, but there's so many things about them that we enjoy and we want, but there are also these other things that we're like, or maybe there's just one thing. If I could just change this one thing about that person, then it would be perfect. They wouldn't be the same person then, by the way. And you don't know. You actually do not know what all of the reasons are that you are attracted to them. And so if you went and changed something, you may actually change something very important. You can't anyway, so just shut up. Shut up, don't worry about it. That's it. So to accept people as they are, to let them be. I remember I thought Dan and Stacy would be here, and Dan used to say we'd go to, when you attend meetings like some of us do, and recovery meetings, from time to time you'll have an opportunity to practice acceptance of others, and there will be people that come in, and some that you know, some that you don't know that well, and they'll start saying something that you'll have some level of disagreement, discomfort, or something, some difference that you want to think about. And what Dan used to always do in the meeting is when someone that he was having a problem with started to speak, he would close his eyes and he would repeat to himself over and over. He would just say, "Let them be, let them be, let them be." And but it's instructive. It's instructive to that idea of relaxing and saying, "Okay, I'm just going to let this person be whoever they are." And it's freeing, because listen, you can't do anything about it except get upset, and that certainly doesn't help anything. So there's some pieces in the lessons for the week, and there's some ideas that really are quite different than normal mainstream ideas about relationships and about how we see ourselves and how we see each other. And first is the idea of innocence. It's actually an awakening that we can come to this, to wake up to innocence, to no longer dream of guilt, to be thinking of ourselves as son, daughter, child of God, one with creation, and just as fresh and pure. Just think about, I'm going to tell you right now, you're just as pure as you ever were. All the baggage that you think you're carrying around, just a dream, just an illusion, not real. All of the past regrets and resentments, a dream. Bad dream, but a dream. Wake up. That's to understand that we're an extension of God's thoughts, and that God's thoughts are perfect, and we're interfering them with our ego thoughts. So to realize that that's just an error, it's just a mistake that can be corrected, not an indelible stain upon the soul, but just a mistake that can be corrected. And this is the most important point: God's not keeping track, so we should probably stop keeping track too. I know there's a myth out there. And when I say these things, it's okay if you disagree. I'm fine. I'm accepting. It's all right. You can disagree. I'm just going to tell you what I think about it, and you just take what you need and leave the rest. But I'm saying God doesn't have a notebook up there, or St. Peter either. They're not keeping track of all the stuff that you've done, but you are. And so this judgment of oneself, ultimately we have to deal with it ourselves. We deal with it, there's a number of ways that we're going to do that. We can. It's important, I think, to journal or to inventory, whatever you want to call it, and write these things down, and then to let them go. Creation is holding us guiltless. And then once we become aware of this, of the fact that God has nothing against us. I remember years ago, one of the first times that I went to the Unity Church, there was a woman speaking there, and she said this thing that, before that, I was really not a believer in any way at all, but she said this thing that really I knew was counter to what most people thought. She said, God is not mad at you. God is not mad at you. Or anybody else. When this is the thing, see? So it'd be nice. It's nice to consider the idea that maybe God is not mad. But then to actually consider that God's not mad at anybody else, then that totally nullifies our own justification as for why we would be mad at somebody else. So creation holds nothing against us. We can forgive ourselves for the mistakes that we have made and move on. Sinless, and then I know it sounds like the same thing, but it's not, because in this case I want to talk about other people being, to hold everyone as sinless. To make a commitment to behold the unlimited good in everyone that we meet. Just make it a commitment. Okay, you know what? Some commitments we really are focused and we stay on it and we do our task, whatever the heck it is. But a commitment like this is a commitment that's going to slip from time to time. What really shows whether you're committed to it or not is if you pick it up again. If you decide to do it again even after you were not seeing the good in that person that you met, to stay focused on the present moment and see our brother and our sister in that moment. To see them as they are in the moment. To recognize that they are all family. And if a past grievance comes to mind, to forgive the image. And this is really it. This is what forgiveness in this regard is, to let people free of the image that we're holding of them. And really, when we do it in a pure sense, we're actually letting go of the image, even the image of the positive things that we think of. To actually leave them totally free would be blank slate. Totally new beginning in every moment. All of the possibilities, all of the infinite, wonderful things that could happen are there present in that moment. To remember that we are in complete control of how we see people and events, right? So that a couple weeks ago we talked about Eleanor Roosevelt, and she said, accept what comes and meet it with courage and the best you have to offer. That's what this is. The best we have to offer is to see people free of all of this baggage. And when we free them, of course, we free ourselves. So, to be in complete control of how we view the people, we can see perceived past actions, we can remember old hurts, we can project into the future, we can be sure that we will be harmed again by this person, or we can see them all as sinless. The former path leads to unhappiness, the latter to peace. No need to harbor fear, anger, non-judgment. Here's what I'm going to read a poem here. What Robert Frost, this is one of these classic poems. It's called Acceptance. It says, when When the spent sun throws up its rays on cloud and goes down burning into the gulf below, no voice in nature is heard to cry aloud, what has happened? Birds at least must know. It is the change to darkness in the sky, murmuring something quiet in her breast. One bird begins to close a faded eye. Or overtaken too far from his nest, hurrying low above the grove, some waif swoops just in time to his remembered tree. At most, he thinks or twitters softly, safe. Now let the night be dark for all of me. Let the night be too dark for me to see into the future. Let what will be, be. To see rightly. To judge rightly. To judge rightly is not to make comparisons at all. It is easy to get caught up in comparing one thing to another, one person to another, one person with ourselves. And these judgmental thoughts always lead to suffering. It may seem at first that there's some comfort in it. But that's an illusion. All of our efforts at putting people into categories only serves to separate us from one another even further. And so, non-judgment leads the way. So that we can see through past associations and dread of the future directly into the heart of God. I've been reading too much poetry lately. It just, talking about this and allowing and feeling it, I'm just like so at peace and comfortable right now. To accept the self, to really when we accept ourselves, what we're doing is we are accepting the love of God that's always being offered to us. We practice it by accepting that, to start, that God created us in love, as love, and that we remain as we were created. We do not need to be afraid. In the quiet of the moment, we can consider who it is we really are. We may be unhappy with our bodies. They're just temporary anyway, don't worry about it. But we are much more than our bodies. We may find ourselves falling short in our activities, but we are not our activities. We are pure spirit. We are the very expression of God, creation in action. Now this is a view to hold, that we are the expression of God, that we are creation in action. This is this wonderful view of ourselves. If we hold the perspective, the issues with our bodies and our actions and all those other things will fall away until they're totally healed. Now this doesn't mean, I think it's very important for us to examine what our actions are, and if there are actions that we need to correct or do something different, that we make a decision that we're going to do something different. But when we sit and hold and regret, all that's in our mind is wrapped up in this continuous loop of mistakes, and I wish I wouldn't have done that, and that traps us. That traps us in a pattern of continuing to repeat the mistakes over and over again. To be tolerant, to accept people as they are. So easy to notice the shortcomings of others and even to comment. Whenever we begin to notice this, we can look again to realize that our identity and the identity of others is wrapped up in and a part of creation, which is to say God. And that's a totally different view then. That's a totally different view. So to to realize that yes, and this is another thing that this is just something that we accept also, that we are going to see ourselves. We're going to observe ourselves making judgments of people. We're going to see them acting in ways that are less than attractive. We're going to notice. But when it occurs, we can choose again. It's no longer important to notice the differences between us. It's not helpful to try to, it is not helpful to try to mold other people into what we think that they should be. So we can say, today I will be and I will let be. And it's all that really is all about goodwill. The affirmation that I use for that one is that I am willing good. I'm willing good. We have this power. Sometimes it gets. Many of us have heard that our will. That's like a negative thing. Our will is but our will is a good thing. It's actually our ability to make a decision between one thing and another. And ultimately, it's the ability to make a decision between self-will and goodwill. And so it's a power that we have. It's a decision-making power, and of course, what we're best off doing is to ask for guidance from Spirit as to what decision. But the idea of willing good, as I want my will to be for good. I want my will to be for good. I want my decision-making power to be for good. I want to release suffering and accept the good in my life. I want to allow that goodness to flow through me, to realize and to see, to have there's like a comfort that comes with it when we start to change our mind around and realize that goodwill is active in our lives all the time. So here's another one of those things I'm going to say that somebody's going to disagree with just because they're so used to things. People say everything happens for a reason, as if it's like predestiny, right? But yes, everything happens for a reason. It's called cause and effect. Mm-hmm. Everything happens for a reason. This thing happens and then something else occurs as a result of it, right? But what's beautiful about goodwill is that whatever it is that happens, whether it's caused by a mistake or whether it's caused by some other act of goodwill, whatever it is that happens, in that moment, there is another opportunity for goodwill. And even if we decide to take self-will, the next moment, there's an opportunity for goodwill, because God's will is for good and it is always present. But it is always up to us which one we take. And that's our responsibility. So when somebody says everything happens for a reason as some kind of stupid-ass excuse, sorry, as for how we're in this situation, and some badly thought out acceptance of, oh yeah, the situation is bad, but everything happens for a reason, so that's just, no, yes, okay, so let's recognize that the situation is bad, but let's look for goodwill to move out of the bad situation. Because that's the opportunity that is being provided at all times and in all places. Here's what Lao Tzu says about this in the Tao Te Ching. He says, life is a series of natural, spontaneous changes. Don't resist them. That only creates sorrow. Let reality be reality. Let things flow naturally forward in whatever way they like. This like we're going to go. The Tao is like this beautiful thing about flowing down the river of life, allowing yourself to flow down the river of life. But here's where the opportunity for goodwill comes in. Down the river of life, there's a bunch of boulders. There's a bunch of rocks. And we have the ability to glide, to flow, to move smoothly down this river of life, gently avoiding the big rocks. Sometimes not. Sometimes we crash into them, right? I love this piece by Andy Warhol. He says this. He says, sometimes people let the same problem make them miserable for years when they could just say, so what? He says, that's one of my favorite things to say. So what? I got two things about friends, and this is really about to be friends, to have shared interests, to share common and extraordinary moments with someone, to establish. Here's what George Eliot. By the way, wrote under the name George Eliot, but a woman. She says, "A friend is one to whom one may pour out the contents of one's heart, chaff and grain together, knowing that gentle hands will take and sift it. Keep what is worth keeping, and with a breath of kindness, blow the rest away." So Jim Morrison says, "A friend is someone who gives you total freedom to be yourself, and especially to feel or not feel. Whatever you happen to be feeling at any moment is fine with them." That's what real love amounts to, letting a person be what he really is. An acceptance of oneself. This is from Lao Tzu again, from the Tao Te Ching. Because one believes in oneself, one doesn't try to convince others. Because one is content with oneself, one doesn't need others' approval. Because one accepts oneself, the whole world accepts